I think quite a few of you that are in today were able to attend at least part of the UDL Forward conference that took place, oh good grief, about 2 weeks ago now. I do want to point out to you, if you get into the UDL Forward community, the videos are now uploaded into that space. So I know there were quite a few people that had mentioned they were only able to attend one breakout session at a time. And I know they were looking forward to being able to watch some of the additional sessions that were occurring simultaneously. So if you go into the UDL Forward community, I'm hoping that you're going to see an additional space on the left-hand side that says UDL Forward Conference. You might have to join that particular space in order to have access to the videos. But then once you get into that conference space, you'll be able to see what you're seeing on the screen right now, which is the keynote as well as the additional sessions that were offered. And if you click on any of those, you're going to be able to access the videos for those sessions. So if there's anything that you were sad to have missed that you would like to see, make sure to check out that UDL Forward conference space in the community. We're going to get into an activity here. I would love for you to, if you'd like to click on the vehicle metaphor check-in. I'll also share it on our screen right here. And what I would love for you to do is I'm going to give you a couple minutes to pick a vehicle that you think represents your UDL journey so far. Whether you've been with us, this is your first year, whether you've been with us a couple of years. If you had to pick a vehicle, which one would represent your journey so far? I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I would love for you to pick your vehicle and then also jot down maybe some ideas as to why you selected that particular vehicle. And I'm going to have a few of us share. I know we have some people here from the same district. I'm interested to see if you picked the same vehicle. Go ahead and put your vehicle in chat. Which of the 5 vehicles did you pick? Did you pick the bus, the digger, there's probably a more technical word for that digger. I don't know what it is. The roller coaster, the bike with training wheels, or the cop car with the big speaker on the front of it.
I can speak. Can you hear me?
Who's that? Is that Tina?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep, I can hear you, Tina.
Yeah. I picked the roller coaster because I feel like sometimes we're really high and doing, up to that exciting point, and then we kind of go down and we go back up and down, and that's kind of how things have been going.
Nice. We'll sustain ourselves with those highs, right?
Yes.
That's what keeps us moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing, Tina. Rachel, I think you were going to share. Oh, you're muted again, Rachel.
Okay. I'm the only representative from Neenah today. Katie's got other meetings, but I think she might agree with me that we were on training wheels and we fell off our bike at one point, but we're determined to get back on and pick back up next year.
Yeah, the real hope will be next year those training wheels will come off, right? And that you guys will just fly on 2 wheels. I'm excited for that for you, Rachel. Who else? Two Rivers, I'm interested to see. Did you guys pick different things?
We did.
You did. Tim, you picked the bulldozer.
Yeah, I picked that because I just felt like so far this year we've been slow and steady moving forward, just like a bulldozer kind of working through a pile of dirt.
Love that. I love that, but you can see the progress. So that's great. And then Mercedes picked roller coaster. What did Sherry pick? Roller coaster too?
Yeah, I picked the roller coaster because I feel like when we first started out, it was like doing that climb. Then it felt like, oh, we're figuring this out. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, maybe we're not figuring this out. So that's why I picked the roller coaster.
Did it seem like it was at same spots in the trials, Sherry, that you were like trying to work on the figuring out part, or was it at different stages?
Probably like the trials and then trying to figure out the rubrics. So different pieces of the trials as well.
Okay.
I also find, because I'm on both ends, I'm a mentor and a team member on this team, that I think we are definitely a roller coaster. Like, I see the ups and the downs. I see when we've got it figured out and we're doing great and we have time in the classroom and the kids are doing it, and then we go way down real fast and then we're trying to climb back up. Like, it's just an up and down, like how your normal teaching school year goes, right? It's always up and down.
Yeah. And that's interesting because you might even be experiencing an up in one role while you're experiencing a down in another role. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Mercedes. What about, I think we have quite a few people from Gillette. Gillette, what did you?
I almost picked bus like Sean because I was thinking like getting everybody on the bus and the same page, but then I went with the end loader. My husband's in construction, that's why I knew it was an end loader. Because identifying like the big rocks and picking those out and what people are focusing on.
Love that part. And Sean, you picked the bus?
I chose the school bus. Kind of because I think of it almost, since we're doing the trials with all of our middle and all of our high school teachers, so our entire teaching staff, it's kind of like going on a field trip every time we get together, with all the things that you have to consider when you take students on a field trip, like just organization to begin with, the timeline, or itinerary for your field trip. How are you going to deal with behaviors? So behaviors of our adults. But at the end of the day, we come out of that with some learning overall and are better for it. So
I love that. And we're all holding hands, and some of the kids were dragging along with us, right? On that field trip.
And I
Thank you
picked
for
the bus
sharing.
because of the energy bus, right? Like it's I'm on the bus and we're trying to get people on the bus and get us all headed in that direction. So
Yeah, some are probably still waiting at the bus stop, maybe. Yeah.
some haven't made it to the bus stop. Yep.
If we can't laugh about it, right? We have to be able to laugh about so it. Just a quick, a few other reminders before we head into the meat of the meeting. Make sure that we're filling in that participation log. We did want to follow up, as we are asking you to complete that survey each time, and we know it is a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of time at the end of the meeting. Some of the feedback that we've heard that we really take to heart and we try to plan intentionally into the meetings is that you really appreciate the time to collaborate across different districts, as well as have that team time within your district. Being able to discuss barriers and solutions with other people that are kind of in the same space as you are, as you're on that bus ride or that roller coaster or wherever you are in your journey. Resources to use with implementation trial teams. We heard that pretty strongly last time after we shared some things with you on self-assessment and self-reflection. So that's great. We are happy that you're able to use some of those resources within your districts. And we also heard that you like that time to plan with your teams for next steps as part of our meeting as well. We do know that the survey has a lot to it because we've broken it out into those different roles, and we've heard that as feedback for next year. We are kind of just combining all the feedback across the entire year right now, so we can't make any changes in that survey at this point. So we appreciate you finishing out the year with our current survey, but we wanted to let you know that if there is a role that we did not cover in the session, it's okay to answer that. It just wasn't included in the session. I believe is one of your options. for particular roles within the trials. So feel free to use that as a selection when you're going through that survey. Also, if you have not yet, I think all of you have probably now launched into trial 2, but if you have not administered that practices and student learning survey during trial 1 data analysis, make sure you do that as well. And then my last piece as a reminder is to make sure that you sign up for the showcase check-in, but make sure that you have a time that we can you can meet with our team just to make sure that you are all set and ready to go for Army check-in.
Okay, hopefully you can all see the agenda. First off, I just want to thank everybody for being here. When I think about March, I know how crazy March is for everybody in the schools with state testing, with spring breaks, with all the disruptions that happen to your normal schedule. So thanks for being here. The rest of the time today is really going to be time for you to do that collaboration that we, heard back from feedback that you gave in the last couple meetings. And so the first thing we're going to start talking about today before we get you into breakout rooms to have some discussion and do an activity is to really talk about PDSA cycles. And so we just have in the agenda a real quick brief presentation on PDSA cycles. And it's interesting because recently in a team meeting I had with some other colleagues, we were talking about PDSA cycles. And through that conversation, we realized that we all kind of thought about them potentially just a little bit different. And so I think it's really important when we're talking about this project, we are talking about going through PDSA cycles with our teachers in regards to the strategies that we're implementing in our classrooms, right? And what we want to do is measure it, to look at data to see, are we getting the results that we're hoping for? What are some things maybe we need to do differently? Those types of things. So as you can see on this slide, this is the visual that probably was shared with you very, very beginning of the project, or when you even were starting to think about joining the project. Is the whole project is designed around PDSA cycles. And so what we want to do is just spend a little bit of time really thinking through the process of the project and how different pieces fit within those different pieces of a PDSA. And if you haven't had a chance to really talk to your staff or your teams who are engaged in this process about PDSA cycles, it might be really helpful to just kind of take a few minutes with them and really think about making sure that they understand the PDSA cycles and why are we going through this process and what are we hoping to have happen. And the thing about PDSA cycles is they can be used for a variety of things, right? This can go into all kinds of different work that you're doing within your district, not just the trials. So before we talk through these 4 steps, what I'm going to do is, hopefully this video works, is show it's real brief. And we're just going to listen to it before that.
Welcome to the SysEP video on improvement cycles. This video will navigate the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, also known as a PDSA cycle. While many other models for continuous improvement exist, the PDSA cycle uses a framework to identify changes that are needed in implementation efforts. PDSA cycles include 4 steps: plan, do, study, and act. First is plan. During planning, the team identifies changes that are needed using multiple data points, determines outcomes and how success will be measured, and creates action plans. Next is do. The team carries out the plan to address the changes. Then it's study. The team studies what happened by using the measures identified during the planning phase to assess and track progress. Finally, it's act. The team makes changes to the next iteration of the plan to improve implementation. Let's follow this process with an example. Wellington Elementary holds 2 parent nights per year, one in the fall and again in winter after the new year. Over the last 3 years, parent attendance has steadily decreased. The school improvement team was meeting to plan the winter parent night, and Miss Perry, the principal, showed a graph from the last 3 years with a dramatic decrease from 75% the first year to 22% of parents attending the previous session. The team decided to address attendance before planning the winter session. They set a goal to reach 65% attendance for the winter parent night and brainstormed ideas. One of the teachers pointed out that although their school was highly diverse, their school team did not reflect that same diversity. The team realized they needed to hear from the parents, so they sent a survey. After receiving feedback, common responses were that most parents needed childcare, and Friday evenings were not a good night. Many parents also noted they were unsure of the reasons to attend parent night, and some parents requested the need for Spanish translators. With this information, the team decided to increase parent representation on their team to include 3 parents. With these critical perspectives now on the team, they made a plan to address each barrier identified from the parent survey. Over the next month, the team put the plan in motion. They moved parent night from Friday to Tuesday. A few team members worked out childcare and Spanish translators. The 3 parents led work around messaging and designed a flyer to be sent home with each student. One of the parents translated the flyer into Spanish. They each promoted the upcoming parent night at local community events. The full team shared school posts about parent night on their personal social media accounts. Finally, parent night arrived. The team members noticed there were more parents, but they wouldn't know the total until their follow-up meeting. They also had parents complete a short survey before they left. At the follow-up meeting, Ms. Perry announced that 67% of parents attended parent night. The team was ecstatic that so many more parents attended. They reviewed the parent feedback survey and found that parents appreciated the new changes. A few suggestions included refreshments, time for questions, and recording the main opening session. They also had 6 parents volunteer to help the following year. With new information gained from the winter session, the team decided to make more changes to the planning team. They included a few new parent volunteers and shifted the planning team to a parent-led team with staff representation. With their new team and processes in place, they would be ready for the planning cycle to begin again. As PDSA is a continuous improvement process, the team followed the same PDSA process the following year, and in the fall, attendance increased to 77% and 91% in the winter. Employing this process helped Wellington Elementary School not only increase parent attendance during parent night, but over time, the focus of parent night shifted from the school simply sharing information to actively engaging parents. Continuous improvement can be applied to any area of education. When professionals commit to examining practices and their impact on outcomes and then changing practices to improve outcomes, teachers, students, and families benefit. Using improvement cycles, we can get started and get better.
So as you saw in the video, I appreciate that they went through what each of those different phases were in the PDSA cycles, as well as giving you an example. So I know when I was watching it, I was thinking about the different pieces of our implementation trials and how that really does fit within that PDSA cycle. The thing that I really like too about PDSA cycles is sometimes in education, I know when I was in a school, sometimes I would get feedback from staff of feeling like we were picking the next shiny thing, right? And I'm sure you probably maybe have heard that, with your own staff. What I really appreciate about PDSA cycles is it really makes you think about what is the problem or the change we are trying to create? How are we going to measure that success? And so it's very intentional instead of, saying we're just gonna, do the implementation trials in UDL, right? It makes us think about being very planful and thoughtful on, well, what are we hoping is going to happen if we do decide to implement either initiative or a practice or those types of things. So on here you can see we have the Plan, Do, Study, Act, just real briefly. They already described that within the video. And then what I do want to also share is we have a quick, very quick snippet of an article here, and it's just these 3 paragraphs. I'm just gonna be quiet in a few seconds so that you have a chance to read it, And then we're gonna get back together and you're gonna get in breakout rooms to apply some of the information that we just talked about. So I'll give you, you know, a minute or two to read this and then we'll come right back. Okay, so hopefully you had an opportunity to read that article, and in the back into the presentation, there is a link for the entire article in there. One piece that I also want to highlight that I think is really important is the nice thing about PDSA, right, is we're studying it to see if it worked. And then what we need to do is decide, are we going to either adopt? Are we going to abandon, or do we need to adapt? Do we need to change things? So I think it's okay. Sometimes we're so worried about if we implement something and it doesn't work, you know, what are our next steps? Did we waste our time? Some of those conversations in a PDSA cycle really leads you through that it's really about trying something and then stopping to think about if it worked. And if not, what are we going to do as a team? So that's another piece that I just wanted to highlight. So I'm going to go back into our agenda, as you can see. And what we're going to do in just a minute is Joe has helped me create some breakout rooms. And what we're going to do is when you click on this, it's going to take you to a Padlet. It's important that you pay attention to what room you are in, because when you look over here, they are numbered. It's a Padlet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They are the exact same Padlets. But you're going to pick the number that correlates or corresponds to the breakout room you're in. And as a team, we're going to ask you to just drag these over to the different areas of the PDSA cycle that you think that they belong in. And you can feel free to go back and look at any of the information on that slideshow that we gave you. But we really want you to just think about the different pieces that are found in here are very specific to the implementation trials process that you are going through this school year. So what I'm going to do is we are going to give you some time to get back together or get together for the first time within those breakout rooms and have a chance to do that sorting in the Padlet. Looks like everybody is coming back to the main room. I hope that you had an opportunity to have some conversation in the Padlet. I am going to share my screen, and those of us in this space, we went to slide 6 in the Padlet, and we had some conversation on where did we feel like the different pieces of the process fit. And we had some really good conversation on how people interpreted the different pieces, and where they could potentially fall within the PDSA cycle. And I think sometimes, you know, just to let you know, the way you interpret or the way you put it within the process, it doesn't always have to be a specific way. So if yours looks a little bit different than ours, that's okay. But we did want to share how our team really thought about it. With the different components, so you can kind of compare ours to some of the things that some of the areas that you put in. I am curious if anybody, if one of the breakout rooms wouldn't mind just sharing your experience with the process or some conversation that you had within your breakout room about even how your team goes about PDSA. So if I could just get even one room to share, that would be great.
We noted how we do small PDSAs amongst the larger PDSA cycle.
Yeah. That's exactly what we talked about in our group as well, is that, you know, you usually have a larger PDSA and those smaller ones. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that, Stephanie. So now we're going to move into our next agenda item. And so this is really the time that we want to have for people to get together in their breakout rooms to talk about data. And so we're going to do 2 different breakout rooms. You're going to get into a first breakout room, and it's going to be with you know, different people than from your team. You're going to get 10 minutes within that space, and then we'll bring you back together and you'll get paired with another group of people to talk about it for another 10 minutes. And we have you know, a bunch of different questions posed there. So we just ask that you pick the questions that are most meaningful to you. Or maybe you have wonderings, you wanna pick the brains of the people that are in your breakout room for. And we really want to be having those conversations about data discussion, because one of the things that we talked about when we looked back at the survey information after each one of these sessions is every school is in a different place in regards to their implementation trials. So you can learn from each other. Maybe you haven't even been able to do a whole bunch of data collection at this point, but that's okay because you can ask your colleagues for some advice on how to do that in the future. So we're going to get you into those breakout groups, and we're going to set the timer for 10 minutes, and then we'll bring you back and get you in for another 10 minutes. And like I said, if there's a question on here, if you have other questions that aren't listed, feel free to talk about something that is, really top of mind to you. And okay, I hope everybody had some chance to talk about the different data discussion you're having within your teams. We're going to get you ready to go into one more set of breakout rooms. We'll make the time a little bit shorter, but I'm just wondering from that first breakout time and those discussions, what were any ahas, or do you have any questions from the larger group that you want to discuss before we put you into those second breakout rooms?
I could say that we're all at different points, but we're all learning as we go. That's a general theme.
I appreciate you, Stephanie, sharing that. And I think that yeah, that's the interesting part of this work, right? Is you all have your own roadmaps. You have different structures put in place and timing, and as to when you can meet with your teams, or even some of you are doing this work with your full staff. Some of you have smaller teams. So lots of different things that you can talk about. One thing that, I think is interesting with just their cycles of school is we are at the middle of March. So some of you, or I'm assuming all of you, are trying to think about, like, what does this mean for next school year? Are we scaling it up? Are we still gonna do the same type of work? So when we think about the sustainability or the abandon, adjust, adapt, those are some conversations that I know some of you are already having internally within your districts and with your team members. So if you haven't had an opportunity to kind of even talk through some of that in the first round of breakout rooms, maybe that's an area that you would like to talk about in this next session. He is coming back, and we are now to the part of the agenda where we're going to take a quick break. So feel free to take that quick break and then come back, and we will have Joe talk about the showcase to get you all prepared. So we have a 10-minute break. Please all come back in 10 minutes.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are going to just tell you some information and remind you about the showcase work that's going to be happening in May. Kim did say to sign up for that showcase check-in. That showcase check-in is meant for us to be able to just apply a little positive pressure to make sure that you're moving forward in that showcase development, as well as having you choose when you would like to be presenting during that showcase agenda. So if you haven't, please sign up for that showcase check-in time so that we can just get your thoughts on where you want to be in the lineup, and we can help you remove any barriers to developing that showcase presentation. There are guidelines that can be helpful to you to be able to think about what should be included in the presentation. We want you to tell your story of your district and how the ups and downs, that whole roller coaster ride, what worked well, what didn't work well, what might you be doing differently. So your story might consider these questions that are in the column 1 of the showcase guidelines. You might include some of these pieces of evidence and some learning and insights, and then other artifacts to highlight. If you can share any one of the pieces from the toolkit that was really instrumental in helping you enact those implementation cycles, that's a great way to highlight how the toolkit's been helpful to you. And then also any pictures, videos, quotes, or testimonials from either leader, mentors, teachers, teams, and or if students feel like they've been particularly impacted by clear learning goals, student self-assessment, or other practices that have been put into place align to the UDL guideline considerations, that's helpful. And so we want to provide you a little bit of time to share some of the ideas that you might have already started with your presentation. So if anybody from Reedsburg, Gillett, or Two Rivers can share anything that might have already started in your district with regards to the showcase development. Or any plans that any ideas you have, or what you might include in your presentation.
I can start.
Great.
So we have decided that we are going to start videotaping all of our meetings as a full team because there's awesome conversations that happen there. And we would like to be able to pull snippets of that to make our video for our showcase. So we've recorded all of them now, and then we're gonna go back and pull the pieces that show what we want.
Thank you, Mercedes. Sean, I think you were gonna step in and say something.
Yeah, just a little component of something that we're gonna include in our showcase is how some of our team members are using artificial intelligence to support some of the instructional planning piece of it that then is measured by our trials. So it's one little component that we haven't quite worked out the details of what that'll look like in the showcase, but that's something we want to include.
Great, thanks, Sean.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I'm the lone person left from Reedsburg. The other two had stuff going on. But we are just kind of in the beginning portions of our planning process. So nothing as far as super plans right now.
Okay, so a great place for inspiration for what you might include in your showcase presentation is on the UDL Forward community.
Yep.
Okay, so and any of you, if you haven't already taken a look at some of the stories from the field, those are all of the showcase presentations from last year. So
Okay.
if you need a little bit of inspiration or you're at a loss for exactly what to include, that's a great place to tap in to see what other people have done.
Okay, thank you. I think we saw some of those earlier, but to refresh on those, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Kim, and she's going to kick us off into some planning time.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. As I mentioned earlier, we know that you value this time that's set aside monthly to meet with your team and kind of have some work time as well. So we want to give that to you right now. We do have a few resources that are listed, and I realize I'm not sharing my screen right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and share. We put in some resources in there. I think, if I'm correct in thinking of our districts that are with us right now in our meeting, I don't know that any of you are going to engage in 3 trials. I believe that all of you are in the midst of kicking off trial 2, and that's as far as you're gonna go, which is great. There are just some resources in there that might be helpful for you if you were considering trial 3, or if you're possibly going to engage in that in an upcoming year. So there's a video in there from Shelley Moore. The UDL guidelines are linked in there for you as well, and some tips for designing learning experiences from CAST. And those resources also just might be helpful in general as well. And then you can also have time to plan and create your May showcase, as we just had some discussion around if you still need some ideas or you need to start doing some further planning or continuing your work in trial 2 with your team.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you had a productive planning session with your group. All right, Christine is going to put the survey, after session mentor user group survey link into the chat. And if you would please fill that out. As you can tell from today's agenda, that information is used to craft how the agenda looks for the next meeting. So we appreciate you giving us feedback on that. Our next meeting date is April 16th from 9 until 11. There, we're gonna do our last time going through what a data analysis and reflection looks like. And then we'll also have time for you to work on your May showcase presentation, because the next meeting after our next meeting will actually be that showcase. We want to invite you to invite other people in your district who you would like to recruit onto this process. Perhaps you're thinking about scaling up, or you realize this year that you needed the support of another administrator or somebody else in your district, or even those teachers who might be somewhat engaged, but really need to hear the stories of other people to fully get on board. Maybe that bus in Gillette that people aren't getting on, maybe part of that invitation onto the bus can be part of from the stories of the showcase presentations of other districts. So we will send out to you an invitation that you can use to be able to invite others in your district. Maybe you know other people in other districts that might benefit from this kind of a process, as well as teachers that you might have as a watch party, so that they can become recruited to the process as well. Thank you so much for participating today, and we will be seeing you in a month's time.